For those of you that are coming for the first time, my name is Judy Gaman. I'm the Director of Business Development at Executive Medicine of Texas. I'm also co-host of the nationally syndicated Staying Young radio show, and I'm an award-winning author. I've authored several books by myself and also with the two physicians, Mark Anderson, who many of you may have heard speak at a previous talk, and Walter Gaman, who, yes, is my husband. When you say Gaman and Gaman, it's true. And Southlake Style, and Southlake Style has been an excellent sponsor for us. They're helping us get the word out. We're very happy to be with the city of Southlake in their LiveFit, LiveWell Lecture Series. The goal of these lectures is to bring health and wellness education out to the community as a give back. So genetics, epigenetics, and mindset, that's what we're going to talk about today. All of these are very important to longevity. So let's talk for a minute about genetics. Genetics is the inherited sequence. The key word here is sequence. The sequence of your nucleic acid in your DNA strand. So just to give you a quick overview here, there are 4 letters in your DNA, and I'm not going to go too deep into this, but just so you kind of understand what DNA is. There are 4 letters that make it up. Those 4 letters are put together in a particular order. I want you to think of the alphabet for a minute and how we only have how many letters in the alphabet, but yet we have thousands of words because we change the order of those words, and the changing of the order of those words is what makes those letters is what makes our words. So, or you could think of music. You can take different notes and different instruments, and then you can put those together differently and you get a completely different sound. So when you think of DNA and you think of genetics, I want you to think of sequencing, specifically genetics and sequencing. So the history, a timeline. I love this slide because it gives us an idea of how long or not long DNA has been around, how much we know and are still yet to finding out. It was really about 13 years from the time they started the Genome Project to the time they sequenced it. And what did they find out? They found out that they could sequence the genome, the human genome, but then they realized that, oh wow, people have the same genetics, but they might not have the same, like humans have the same, but each individual may not have the same. So that started something new, and that is the Personal Genome Project. So what they realized is that everybody is not exactly the same, which is what they originally thought. So then George Church, who is an excellent, excellent scientist, he actually put out the Human Genome Project. You may have seen commercials for like 23andMe, and really a lot of that is them gathering information to go into the Personal Genome Project. Because if they can find more information out about the personal genome, then we can say, how come this person has hypertension? How come that person has diabetes? What happened here that made this person have a particular disease, but they're the only one in their family? So we're finding a lot of these things out. If you came to my talk that I did on simplicity, I talked a little bit about Alzheimer's, and I had my 23andMe done, and I found out that I am at a much higher risk for Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's runs in my family, and this is really important that I do all the things I can do to keep from getting it.
So it's hereditary Alzheimer's?
You can have the genetic code. We're going to talk a lot about the difference between a risk and turning it on. But you can have the genetic code for it, which means that you have a higher risk for having it. Let's see. So genetics. This is what I want you to think about when we talk about genetics. What people look like, their ethnicity, all of these things are genetics. There's a difference between genetics and epigenetics. So genetic predisposition. There are a lot of things that can happen when you have when you're predisposed, but there are a lot of things that you won't be predisposed to because those are not genetic risks. But if you look behind me here, you'll see like cancer, for example. And I mentioned the BRCA gene. So why is this important? Well, if you have a mother or an aunt who is positive for the BRCA gene, your risk for having breast cancer is higher. Now, something you may or may not know, and I'm going to do this for a prize here, because we always love to give out prizes. Doctors and office staff are excluded. If you're a male and your mother had breast cancer, raise your hand, don't spit it out. What are you possibly at risk for? Anybody know?
Prostate.
Yes, prostate cancer. A lot of people don't know that, but it is very true. I'm going to give you a, let's see, this is a lunch kit. It's got some energy bars, a little shaker. You just cashed in with a good answer. There you go. Yay! So that's true. So that's why it's really important to kind of know what genetic risks you have in your family history. But I want to emphasize, completely emphasize to you, that because you have a genetic risk, because your dad, your mom, your aunt, your uncle had a disease, does not mean that you are going to get that disease. It only means that you could be at a risk for developing that disease. All right? We talked addiction, psychiatry. You had a question?
If a male has prostate cancer, can the mothers or sisters, his sibling sisters, be at risk of breast cancer?
Only if the male's prostate cancer was due to a BRCA gene, and those sisters carry the same BRCA gene. All right. So epigenetics, this is different. This is the expression, not the sequence, the expression of the genes. So I want you to think of little switches, on and off, right? If you look behind me, there's a IRX35, and that is a gene that means you're going to gain weight or not gain weight. So basically store fat, not store fat. These kind of genes exist. They exist for Alzheimer's. They exist for different kinds of psychiatric disorders, addiction, you name it. And we're finding out more and more about these as we're doing more information and more research on epigenetics. In a previous talk I gave here, I discussed how much money is being poured in to the study of epigenetics, because it's not just about our genetics. It's about what's turning these genes on and what's turning these genes off. So these are the game changers. And when I talk about game changers, I'm talking about the things that are the switches. These are the things that are really important to what's going to switch on and what's going to switch off your genetic code. Now, don't think just because something is switched on, you're going to get it. Switching things off at the wrong time can also make you sick. So these particular things switch on and switch off. Stress, we talked a lot about stress. We had a whole talk on stress. People don't really fully appreciate the effects of stress on the body, and specifically on aging, premature aging. Very, very important. Malabsorptions, really important. So like if you have celiac disease, for example, you may not be absorbing enough vitamin D. So that vitamin D deficiency then can cause you to have an expressed gene, because now your immune system's down. Now your other symptoms are coming forward. You're not sleeping well. You're stressed out more. So all this is very interconnected. So I really want to stress to you how important all of the lifestyle things that we're going to talk about today are to your longevity. Financial stress, I mean, we cannot discount that. Stress is stress. If you're stressed over money, if you're stressed over your kids, if you're stressed over your health, stress is stressed. And the worst kind of stress is not knowing. Because what happens when we don't know what's going on with our bodies, when we don't know what's going on with our finances, when we don't know what's going on with our kids or our family, we just stress more, because what we can do in our head is way worse than probably the reality. And social interaction, especially for seniors, this is so important. The term you've probably heard, shut-in, it's a real problem, because when you don't have social interaction, then you actually can harm yourself, because you have to have that facial recognition. they've done studies, this is really fascinating, that if I come up and I'm having a conversation with you, right, and we're talking, this actually activates something different in my brain than if I'm on the phone and we're texting or I'm sending you messages on Facebook. It is the interaction and the change of her facial expression in real time that activates different parts of the brain. Those different parts of the brain release chemicals within the body, which then are stress reducers. It's all tied together. Of course, we've talked about these before. Chemicals, smoking, big problem. Pesticides, big problem. Drinking, big problem. All of these things can cause your genes to go on and off, and you can have those expressions that you really don't want. All right, this is a neat slide. I like this. I think it was out of the UK. And I like this slide because it tells you some of the things that are basically a roll of the dice. You may get because you were unlucky or because you just got exposed to something. And then the other things, as you'll see, that are more towards lifestyle or genetic predisposition. And the reason I put this slide in here is because it's not either or. It's not your genes, it's not just your lifestyle, and it's not the roll of the dice. It's all of these things. They're all important. So mindset and longevity. This is the part that gets ignored. Your mindset, when you get up in the morning, I love this saying, I've heard it a lot of different times. Do you say, "Good Lord, it's morning"? Or do you say, "Good morning, Lord"? Because whichever one of those you do can set your whole day. But it also can be a determination of how healthy you'll be in the end. Very important. So family interaction, quality of life. Are you happy with your life? Are you doing things to be happy? It's not on this list, but I will tell you, being or playing the victim, it never works. So if you have a predisposition, maybe it's a learned behavior, maybe it's a rut you've gotten into, but if you have a predisposition to say, everybody's mean to me, nobody will be my friend, my kids won't behave, if you only knew my husband, if those are things that, that you tend to say, this is not about all those things. This is about a personal attitude that needs an adjustment, and not just so that you can have friends and have a happy marriage and all that, but so you can live longer. It's not my words, it is actually research. So here at the University of Queensland, positive attitude improves your immune system. They looked at this and it was just amazing the research they came up with, where it showed that if you are stressed and you're always anxious and you don't have a positive outlook, you always see the glass half full, you are not only going to get sick more often, you're not going to get well as fast as you could. It's been proven. That's just one study. There's lots of them. So this is a university out of the Netherlands, 42% decrease in death after cardiac event. If you were exposed to happiness, if you were keeping a positive attitude, if you were doing everything you could do to stay in a good way of life and not fall into the woe is me category. Yale School of Public Health, it is, I love this study, it's a longevity study. It's been repeated. Their particular study showed that people that have positive attitudes live 7.6 years longer. Stress and DNA. So here we're back to stress, right? I want to talk to you a little bit about how the DNA and stress play roles. And it has to do with lifestyle too, but we're going to talk specifically about stress. So what you see behind me is a DNA molecule. What you see on the ends of that are the telomeres. These are the ends of your DNA strands. These are protective caps. They protect your DNA. They help your DNA replicate without becoming damaged or dying. So they think of them like wicks on a candle. So what happens when you light the candle and you're out of wick? You're SOL, that's right. and that's a medical term.
Through our body?
Sorry?
Is it like a strand running through our body?
No, this is each part of your DNA, and those are the ends. Yep, the end of your chromosome. is your telomere, and those things shorten as you get older. But when they get too short, the cells can no longer replicate. And when they can no longer replicate, you age and you die. So how do we keep our telomeres long? A few things that are really important to keeping your telomeres long. Eat right. Eat right. And you also need to reduce your stress levels. And you need to exercise. And all of these things that just seem like common sense, but we just forget to do them. Here's the science behind why you have to do them. Because if you want to live a long time, if you want to have longevity, you have to think about it on this level, right down to the cellular level. So, increased longevity, optimal wellness. It's all about healthy habits. I'm going to ask a question for a little bit of resveratrol. I've got some resveratrol. Love resveratrol. I take it. Keeps my brain sharp. Keeps you young. I'm going to ask you a question. Raise your hand. What is the recommendation for exercise per week? And I want how often and how much?
3 times 30 minutes.
3 times 30 minutes, what 3 things? There's one more 3. You have to do 3 parts to your exercise.
You didn't say that.
Okay, that's okay. I'll give you a resveratrol. Okay, I'll give you a resveratrol. If someone else can tell me what the 3 components are, the 3 things you should be doing for the other bottle. Yes.
I don't know, cardio, strength,
And flexibility.
yeah.
No, hold on. You gave it to her, girlfriend.
Has a bottle.
I know. There you go.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. If you didn't hear her, she said you got to do cardio, you got to do strengthening and exercises, and you have to do flexibility. Flexibility is the one people don't really think about. They think, oh, I stretch. Do you really? Can you still touch your toes? Can you do all of these things? Because flexibility is one of those things you have to keep doing so you don't lose it. So you have to remember that all these 3 things matter. Cardio matters because you need a strong heart, right? Cardio matters because it increases circulation to the rest of your body. And then muscle building and strength, really important because when we exercise, we actually improve our brain health too. Lots of research out there, exercise and brain health are related. So all 3 of those are very important. I'm going to open it up to questions and I'll give another little thing away. So thank you so much for coming. I hope that you can attend all of the talks. They'll be once a month. You're welcome. You're welcome.
When are you going to publish what the talks? What's on